When people think of mountains in the United States, the East Coast isn't exactly the first thing to come to mind. The younger, taller range of the Rockies is definitely more popular in that regard. However, the Appalachian Mountains are, to me, another great iconic mountain range. While they aren't as tall as their western sisters, this is simply because they're one of the most ancient mountain ranges on Earth. Heck, they're even older than Bones! Even though I grew up in South Jersey, where the land is quite flat, my mother grew up in North Jersey, which is home to a little bit of the iconic Appalachian mountain range, and they're quite beautiful. Let's meet some Pokemon that live on the mountains and in the caves of Enjey. The quintessential mountain and cave type would have to be the rock type, so let's meet our rock type family. Meet Powdemole, the gunpowder Pokemon. It's a pure rock type. While it has a docile nature, it produces a flammable black powder, which can be dangerous and explosive. Explosives are sometimes used in mining efforts, so it felt right to make a mine-based Pokemon based on something like gunpowder. The trail Powdemole leaves behind is also inspired by a similar trope from cartoons, where a character carries a leaking vat of gunpowder that explodes in their face. Very Wile E. Coyote style. Additionally, Powdemole is clearly based on an animal, the star-nosed mole. Moles are famous for their digging abilities, making them a perfect inspiration for a cave Pokemon. In Enjey, I'd like to imagine that Powdemole are very common in caves, similar to Pokemon like Geodude or Drillbur. The name Powdemole comes from powder, pow, mole, and the cadence of flammable. With a little training, Powdemole will evolve into Flammamole, the gunshot Pokemon. It's a rock and fire type. It scares off predators and stuns prey with sudden, loud noises. It has a mischievous personality. Unlike its more docile and quiet pre-evolution, Flammamole loves causing problems on purpose. When exploring Enjey's caves, you can expect to be startled by the loud noises this Pokemon makes. Flammamole's tail now looks like a flame, closer to the way lit gunpowder looks like in cartoons, showing off its new fire typing. Even its star-shaped nose is meant to reference a small cartoon explosion. Flammamole is a play on flammable and mole. If you expose Flammamole to a firestone, it will reach its final form. Let's meet X-Boom, the fireworks Pokemon. It keeps the rock and fire type. Depending on its diet and mood, the colors of its explosions can change. People teach them explosive dances to perform during holidays. Fireworks in China were some of the most ancient uses for gunpowder, and in the United States, fireworks are perhaps even more iconic. Here in New Jersey, fireworks shows are actually quite popular on beaches during the summer, with some beaches, such as Point Pleasant, hosting them every week. X-Boom's flames changing color with its diet mimics the composition of fireworks themselves, where the different ingredients can change their colors and the way they explode. The star-shaped nose on these mole Pokemon is at its most relevant here, where it mimics the fireworks that shine like stars in the night sky. I like to imagine that X-Boom is like a rival Pokemon to Excadrill. While Excadrill is a more serious sort of mole Pokemon, X-Boom is a playful troublemaker. It's not malicious, really, it's just a bit of a clown. X-Boom comes from exhume, to dig up, and boom, to describe its explosive nature, both figurative and literal. Of course, there are certainly quieter cave Pokemon in Enjey as well. Let's say hello to Sconsul, the light Pokemon. It's an electric and ghost type. Lost in abandoned mines, this Pokemon creates eerie lights deep in caves. When asleep, they simply look like broken helmets. Even though this Pokemon seems spooky, they're quite gentle and shy creatures. Earn their trust, and you could have a new team member. New Jersey isn't exactly known for its mining history, but there's actually over 600 abandoned mines found throughout the state. Haunted mining equipment seems like a fun, spooky representation of that idea. Plus, I love object Pokemon. Sconsul's name comes from sconce, an old-fashioned sort of light, and soul, meaning both soul like a spirit and soul as in the sun, for its light theme. Sconsul evolves into the more ferocious Flashy, the abandoned light Pokemon. It's an electric and ghost type. After years of wandering alone in the mines, this Pokemon has grown rather hostile and dangerous. Trainers must be careful not to mistake sleeping Flashy for Sconsul. When asleep, Flashy and Sconsul both simply look like helmets, but trainers must look carefully for a broken headlamp, indicating a Flashy. Flashy's ghostly shape resembles a large yellow bird, meant to be a reference to mine canaries. For those who aren't aware, canaries were often used in mines to detect toxic fumes. A singing canary was an alive canary, and and a silent canary was dead and indicated toxic air. The canary's unwilling sacrifice would have saved the lives of many miners. However, this story is just too good not to turn into a resentful ghost. With the combination of electricity from the headlight, Flashy gains the canary's signature golden color. Ghosts and mines also just feel synonymous to me as a whole. Mines are dangerous places, and I'm sure they're plenty haunted by miners and canaries alike. If Enjey was a real Pokemon game, I imagine that Flashy would be a regular danger in caves. You'd need to walk quietly, or else they'd awaken and chase you down for a tough fight. A quiet, dark cave suddenly being filled with bright light and a horrible screech would be quite a jump scare. If you're lucky enough to evolve a Sconsoul, or even to catch a fully evolved Flashy for yourself, they'd be a valuable teammate. Flashy is, of course, derived from the word flashy, referring to its bright body. It also comes from Banshee, a type of ghost known for its horrible scream and its ability to foretell the deaths of people. That's enough time in the caves for now. Let's meet Pokemon from the mountainsides. Meet Slitto, the slip Pokemon. It's a pure ice type. It leaves icy tracks on the ground, causing people to slip. It's somewhat of an epidemic in northern Enjey. Slitto is a convergent Pokemon to Skiddo, and instead of being themed around domestic goats and bikes, Slitto is themed around mountain goats and snowmobiles. Slitto also takes inspiration from black ice, a common phenomenon here in New Jersey. When ice freezes over asphalt, it can be tricky to see, especially from a car. It's honestly a huge hazard for drivers and pedestrians alike. In Enjey, I imagine playful Slitto running across roads and paths, creating that black ice just like the weather does in real life. Slitto is, of course, a pun on slid and Skiddo. With a little bit of training, you can evolve your Slitto into Snowgoat, the slip Pokemon. It maintains the pure ice type. Its sharp hooves allow it to grip on even the steepest surface. Leaving icy tracks, it prevents predators from chasing it. Snowgoat's horns are meant to resemble the handles of a snowmobile, like how Go-Goat's horns are meant to resemble a fancy motorcycle. The leaves on its body are also meant to resemble a coniferous tree, such as spruces and pines, to better reflect the wintry theme. It and Slitto also have scruffier beards and fur to show off their more wild tendencies, as opposed to the more domestic nature of Skiddo and Go-Goat. I think Snowgoat isn't as easy to find as its pre-evolution, and you'd really have to go hiking up the mountains in order to find one in the wild. The sharp hooves are based on an accessory you can add to canes and other walking instruments to make them a little easier to use in icy terrain. With its agility on steep cliffs, Snowgoat would also be an awesome ride Pokemon in the mountains. Naturally, Snowgoat's name combines snow with Go-Goat. A smaller Pokemon you might spot on your mountain adventures is Scriblemur, the stripe pattern Pokemon. It's a normal type. Each one's tail has a unique pattern. They scratch this pattern into dirt to mark their territory. Scriblemur is inspired by barcodes, an invention often attributed to New Jersey inventor Norman Joseph Woodland. Legend goes that he drew lines in the sand and was inspired to make a variation on Morse code based on that. However, this allegedly happened not in New Jersey, but on Miami Beach in Florida. And even though this story is mostly fictitious and very exaggerated, the barcode is still a very famous American invention, and it's still kind of a fun thing to make a Pokemon around. As far as creatures go, Scriblemur is a ring-tailed lemur. While ring-tailed lemurs aren't exactly native to North America, their ringed tails make for an excellent representation of the barcode. Scriblemur's writing stick is inspired by the legend about lines in the sand, and I like to imagine it's like the Enjey version of Grafaiai. And while Grafaiai paints patterns on trees to mark their territory, Scriblemur scratches its patterns into the dirt. This little guy is just a single stage Pokemon, and a fun addition to any team. Scriblemur's name comes from scribble, scribe, and lemur. And with that, those are the cave and mountain Pokemon of the Enjey region. A bit of a shorter episode today, but still a fun one. Sconsoul and Flashy were actually some of the very first Pokemon I sketched out for the Enjey project, so it's fun to finally get to share them and their neighbors. Let me know if any of today's Pokemon will be added to your team. If you'd like to support me, why don't you check out my upcoming Kickstarter project, Mothman Pride Stickers Volume 2. It's a bigger, better version of last year's Mothman Pride project, and it launches this Sunday and lasts all through June. If you're looking for another way to support me and want some behind-the-scenes looks as to what I'm up to, why not check out my Ko-fi page? I offer monthly memberships with lots of benefits, including sneak peeks at my upcoming Enjey videos. I also offer commissions, sell emotes, wallpapers, and adoptables. and make blog updates for folks to read for free. Even just a follow is appreciated, so please go check it out. Next month, you'll get to meet the Beach and Boardwalk Pokémon of Enjey, which should be an iconic group indeed. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'll be back next week with another art video. And in the meantime, why don't you guys go out there and make some art?